Yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Tuesday. Around here, we like to refer to that as Taco Tuesday. Hit it, man.
But more importantly, y'all know what today is, right? It's Taco
Tuesday! Because it's always about the food. And that's JP pushing buttons on the board. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Great on this Taco Tuesday. How are you?
I'm in the mood for tacos, actually.
Always, yeah.
Always. Real ones. No fake tacos.
Not Taco Bell tacos.
No. Well, not that we would ever talk down about somebody's brand.
I mean, it's good, but it's not real tacos. Yeah,
unless Dylan Mulvaney advertises Taco Bell, then I'm out.
That's true. Hey, I always take a Baja Blast from there, though. That is authentic.
Now I'm intrigued.
You've never had a Baja Blast?
I have not.
Oh, wow. I think it's Sprite mixed with Powerade, I think, is the mix. But yeah, it's amazing.
Okay. All right. We can just sit here. I just realized we spent the last couple of minutes talking about food.
Yeah.
All right, let's do a show. We got good stuff laid on for you. Coming up at the top of at the beginning of the third hour. You may or may not know about her, but she's doing amazing work in the state on the question of human trafficking. Not the question, the issue, the travails, the epidemic of human trafficking. Her name's Nicole Wilson, and she has a business called Fortify Alabama. And her specialty is dealing with the victims of human trafficking. And we're going to talk to her in conjunction with a broader conversation on the topic. So yeah, Nicole Wilson coming up at the top of the third hour. And then I still got a triple dipper filled up with stuff. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, going to talk about the immigration nation. Have you seen some of the angst that liberals have right now that Trump dared to allow some South Africans in? What? Yep. How many? Like millions? Tens of millions? Were they streaming across the border, swimming the Rio Grande, going to sanctuary cities? No. 58. And they're truly facing genocide back home. In the meantime, though, what is it that liberals apparently care about? Well, they care about Tren de Aragua. They care about MS-13. They care about, accusing the Trump administration of torturing people inside these penal colonies they set up for. Anyway, all things ridiculous. Immigration nation, that's number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, I call it righting the wrongs, because I found a number of articles where things that happened over the last 4 years are just flat out getting corrected, like a 180, like turn that off, move that around, change that back to where it was. And so I got a series of these. I'm calling that whole dipper just righting the wrongs. It's just absolutely asinine, the jackassery we had to put up with for the last 4 years. But what I'm loving is it is not being undone with a scalpel. It's being undone with a blunt object. So yeah, righting the wrongs is number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, in conjunction with that conversation with Nicole Wilson from Fortify, Alabama, we're going to talk about trafficking kids. And I've got a soundbite from Tim Tebow that talks about perpetrators that are out there and how many there are. And that's just what we can see. This is one I would say brace yourselves for. It's going to be an uncomfortable conversation. It's going to be talking about things that are disturbing, but they're real and they have to be dealt with. So yes, trafficking kids, that's number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump on into the opening monologue, the Rightside Way monologue, brought to you every single day by attorney Stan McDonald. Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, a 30-year veteran in the practice of law. And Stan McDonald is indeed the sponsor daily of the Rightside Way, and I'll tell you more about Stan here in just a minute. Okay, let me just say this. Democrats are in sore need of somebody who will have a grown-up conversation with them. Seriously. You know, the kind of conversation where the truth hurts, but it still needs to be said. The kind of conversation that doesn't accept, cheesy excuses and finger pointing and actually requires them to take some measure of responsibility for their actions. Yesterday, during the show, we talked about the Democrats that bum rushed the gate at the ICE detention facility in Newark, New Jersey, resulting in several arrests, by the way. And then they promptly went on CNN and tried lamely to blame ICE for their actions. Today, in a segment that we'll do here in a few minutes, I'll outline, you'll be surprised, yet maybe not surprised, to hear that there are two Soros-funded groups that are suing the Trump administration trying to stop their efforts of cracking down on child trafficking. I mean, come on. Never mind that the Dems under the Biden administration literally lost 300,000 immigrant children that we still haven't found. Or how about Bernie Sanders flying on private jets all over the nation to give speeches in what he calls the raised against the oligarchy speeches. Just rage against the oligarchy. Or former Representative Jamal Bowman, who pulled the fire alarm in the Capitol trying to keep Republicans from voting on a major piece of reform legislation. Then he tried to pretend he didn't really know what he was doing. I mean, these and more are all childish behaviors. They really are. They are childish behaviors. It's like we're watching an episode of The Little Rascals with Spanky and Alfalfa trying to get one over on Buckwheat and then look surprised when the plan backfires. Somebody has got to get the Democrats by the scruff of the neck, sit them down, and have a grown-up conversation. Reminds me of a situation that I had, a personal situation in Baghdad. There was actually a book written about my battalion in Baghdad. The book's called The Devil's Sandbox. The subtitle was The 2nd Battalion, 162nd Infantry at War in Iraq. And the author is a guy named John Bruning. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but I remember him being a really good guy who had a desire to tell my battalion's story. So I'm in the book in a couple of places, but not like you might imagine. Nothing about the cordon and searches, the raids, and the other operations we did. Nothing about getting mortared, shot at, or having car bombs go off next to my convoy. Nothing about me walking the streets of Baghdad at 3 a.m. to breach doors and sweep sectors of militia activity. None of that. Nope. My chief cameo in the book deals with garbage. Garbage. I kid you not. But here's the deal. Before you laugh at this, consider this. It was 2004. It was the height of the Shia uprising. The summer heat was upwards of 120 degree plus. And the civilian populace, even in Iraq, can get cranky really fast when it gets really hot. And all the more so when essential services in a city of 5 million people are falling apart. You had rolling blackouts, intermittent water flow, damage and outdated sewer systems, and yes, garbage. You combine all of that with the heat and the fog of war, it can get volatile in a real hurry. Well, the trash had reached epic points and the whole city stunk of rotting garbage. I don't mean a little bit. I mean, I'm talking about the streets were lined with piles that were bigger than cars of just garbage, rotting garbage. It was bad. But y'all, this is a major metropolitan city. It wasn't like this vast Middle Eastern city didn't have garbage trucks and landfills. They did. But the whole fleet of garbage trucks was missing in action. 25 trucks missing. The drivers had actually stolen them, and they were acting as independent contractors. If you pay me, I will take your trash. But they never took it to landfills. They would get paid bribes to fill up their trucks, drive to a spot of their own choosing in another neighborhood that was poor, and then dump it out in piles as big as houses sometimes. I'm talking about piles as big as houses next to houses. Just choosing to do another neighborhood with dumps and then go back and collect for money in another neighborhood. In the heat, and the mood of the populace got worse every time. And at one point, I told my commander that we had to address it or his area of operations was going to get worse and worse. And he agreed. He agreed. And so with the help of an Iraqi man whose job was essential services, we came up with what I called Operation Oscar, believe it or not. Operation Oscar, after Sesame Street's Oscar the Grouch who lived in the trash can. So we had the director of city services for Baghdad send word out to all the old drivers that if they would just show up at a certain time with their trucks, the U.S. military would reward them with new benefits. Well, they all showed up all right, trucks and all. At least 24 of them did. 24 out of 25, that's not bad. 24 of them parked inside the gate, just eager to please. And then I rolled up with a platoon of infantry and we locked the gate. Chapter 23 of the book is titled Operation Oscar. So here's an excerpt from the book, and I'm just going to read it to you. It said, Major Williams stared hard at the garbage men standing in ranks before him. The Rasafa sanitation engineers had long since ceased to function as an effective community asset. Instead, The men drew a public paycheck every week and then picked up trash only in the neighborhoods that would offer them bribes. After hours, they kept their trucks, used them as personal vehicles, even taxis, to supplement their incomes. And the triple dipping was about to stop. It says Williams began his speech by saying, in a recent public health survey of 200 major cities, Baghdad ranked 200th in public sanitation. And then Williams paused, pointed straight at the assembly of garbage men and said, and it's your entire fault. The Iraqis looked like they'd been slapped. The speech hit a nerve. Arabic pride was at stake. And Williams continued by saying, and we're going to help you fix that. We got ID cards for you. We've developed routes for you. And from now on, any garbage truck seen outside of its assigned route is going to be recorded and the driver will be fired. I actually found, by the way, I found the 25th truck a few weeks later. He was actually being paid by U.S. military to collect trash in the green zone. I dragged him out of the driver's seat at gunpoint and got the truck returned back to the city. That was what might be called a very one-sided adult conversation. They had to hear something they didn't want to hear. Now, granted, they heard it at the working end of a loaded firearm. But here's the thing. Garbage? Yes, garbage. But what I really had were a bunch of grown men who were refusing to be the adults in the room. I mean, really. How hard is it simply to recognize that something's not right, not mature, not acceptable, and just choose to do the right thing? Or how about if I take that one step further? How hard is it simply to be the one guy, just the one guy in the group who dares to look at the other garbage truck drivers in the eye and say, we got to stop doing this? Well, apparently it's pretty hard for some. But here's the deal. Take that example, move it forward to where we are right now. We're seeing that in our current state of politics. Common sense is often taking a back seat to convenience. The quick opportunity is secondary to the exploitation of the gullible enough to fall for it. Democrats prefer DEI and mandate the use of pronouns, especially things like they, them, contrary to the grammatically correct requirements of the English language. Someone please be the adult in the room and say no. Or how about liberals who prefer to call the mutilation and reimagining of kids as mere gender-affirming treatments? Well, let's stop pretending that in some way it's affirming. It's a sex change procedure, plain and simple, and you're doing it to minors. Minors who are not allowed by law to vote, drink alcohol, have relations with adults, join the military, or even drive. Somebody, please, be the adult in the room and tell them it's wrong and it has to stop. How many Democrats, I don't know, parroted the talking point the last few years that the border was secure? It was not. The world knows it was not. All God's children could see it was not. At the very least, could somebody in the Democrat Party have been the adult in the room and said, let's all just quit lying and just tell them we prefer to have open border policies and be done with it? But they couldn't, because they couldn't have the grown-up conversation. Look, I could go on and on about the gaslighting from the Democrat left. The gaslighting of America by the progressive left and their lackeys in the Democrat Party. Ongoing examples of an inability to talk like adults right now comes from a lack of moral character. It's a lack of leadership. It's a lack of principles. It's bigger than politics. It really is. At every level of society, in social settings, in church, in business, in schools, on sports teams, certainly in politics, we need more people who are willing to be the adult in the room. Look our friends, our neighbors, our coworkers, even our adversaries, and yes, our politicians in the eye, and tell them that wrong is still wrong and that things they're doing have to stop. Because y'all, if we're going to be respected on the world stage, if we're going to be the city on a hill, if we're going to be the people who say that we know right from wrong, well, guess what? It's about maturity then. It's about saving our own little piece of the world. And the left, holy cow, the left needs to have some more grown-up conversations. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. It's true. It's like they cannot figure themselves out. They constantly act as if they would be surprised why you would think that thing that they just made up is okay. And I'm just telling you, they got to have more grown-ups in the room and giving them the things they don't want to hear. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Just text it or call it. Same line for both. Got to quickly tell you, though, about attorney Stan McDonald. So, yeah, Stan McDonald. I know the guy personally. I think the world of him. And listen, he's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law. He's a partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, a great firm out of Huntsville. But here's the deal. Not only is Stan the kind of guy who can advocate quite well for you, legally speaking, but he has been a warrior in the mix for conservative causes for like maybe decades. The guy's an OG ruffian from way back. That being said, attorney Stan McDonald has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He can stand up for you in any local, state, or federal court. And I like to say, if Stan McDonald's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend. And likewise, your adversaries would have no greater foe. So you want an attorney in North Alabama? I'll tell you how to reach him. The number is Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's an America First family man. The phone number again, 256-479-3020. And tell him you heard about it on Rightside. Oh, and no representation made. The quality of legal service be performed is great. The quality of legal service for the lawyers. Shut my mouth.
That's like a 9-7 right there.
Old boy's on a roll.
It's just like, yeah. I'm nitpicking not to give it a 10, I guess, but
you may have had a slur on the third of the last word.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I'll take it. 9.7. Hey, by the way, the book I mentioned a minute ago, so on the rightsidemedia.org website, we have more than just live streaming and stuff about the show. We have all of our podcasts. We have our merchandise store. We have all the things. We also have a tab called Recommended. And Recommended, it's readings. It's books that have either been impactful to me or that I recommend to you or all the above. Several of them on there. One of which is that book I just mentioned about my battalion in Baghdad. It's called The Devil's Sandbox. And it is up there right now. Devil's Sandbox by John Bruning. There's even a link to how you can find it on Amazon if you wanted to. But all I'm saying is the book is linked to our recommended righting list on the rightsidemedia.org website. Check it out. Several text messages already streaming in. Let's see what we got here. Alif Mathin says, Operation Oscar, summer of 04. Oh, the memories. And thanks to you for being willing to pick up garbage. You save lives by doing so, Colonel Williams, and I'm thankful. Well, thank you, Allie. I appreciate that.
I have to say that's a great name for it.
Operation Oscar?
Yeah. As a Sesame Street kid.
I take full credit. In fact, my battalion commander thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, that's good.
But it was truly a health issue. It was a welfare issue. It was we got to do something about this. I got pictures, y'all, of you literally piles that are as big as houses. They created landfills in the middle of neighborhoods. If there was an empty lot, they made a landfill out of it. And then they just go get bribes and bring back more and keep dumping, and nobody could stop them until we stopped them. It was crazy. It was a crazy war, to be honest with you. It was crazy. Is there a non-crazy war? Now that I say that?
All of them are crazy and
bad. They all have their nuances and bad. All right. Plenty more where that came from. Text lines are open, 833-687-4448. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Man, covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew. I mean, it goes from Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that Levis little village on the plains that we like to call Auburn, straight across the border to what we now get to once again like to call Fort Benning. And then, oh, by the way, big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio. That's just the radio footprint. Southeast Regional Force, here we are. Bulletproof influence, oh, by golly. Anyway, that being said, we love this audience and we appreciate you no matter where you are. And there's a bunch of you right now that stream online, and we appreciate that too. So, yes, speaking of which, let me just say this real quick, shameless plug. No matter where you are in the whole wide world, go to the World Wide Web and click on rightsidemedia.org, or you can go to YouTube, Rumble, X, or Facebook and live stream the show if you want to, no matter where you are. Live stream the show direct, and you can see inside the studio. And in fact, I'll tell you right now, as of yesterday, the JP has retooled our streaming capabilities. And we now have the ability to, when I'm talking about an article or something like that, he slaps it up on the screen. You could see it just like in real time. So very cool.
Thank you.
All that and new bumps too.
And new bumps.
And he played the guitar in every one of the bumps.
I did. Yeah.
Okay, let's stop now.
All the bumps are actually me doing the music, guys.
Oh, it's
if you're
wonderful.
a musician.
With a kazoo. All right, let me get a few more text messages to keep those things caught up. Dave from Capshaw says, Phil, I had tacos yesterday and meatloaf today. Will I go to ruffian jail? No, sir, you will not. You are still in the mix. We appreciate your honesty, your transparency. And by the way, that's half the battle.
He's still in the mix for now. We'll flag him though. That guy could be
But Dave, if it was bacon wrapped smoked meatloaf, then you're good all
oh
week.
Yeah,
you got points.
Yeah.
Mike from Florence says, all you have to do to see the left can't have a grown-up conversation is watch a congressional hearing. Oh yeah. When one of them asks a Republican a question, they really don't want the answer. When the Republican tries to answer, they're shut down with something like yes or no. And I reclaim my time, and there's only there for the show and to push. Yes, I know it's ridiculous. It's sad. There are times when having cameras in the room is the best thing, and times when having the cameras in the room is the worst thing, because they play to the cameras and they know it, and we know it. Jeff Rowe from Indiana says, Phil, that's the problem. A lot of these politicians out here are doing corrupt things and no one holds them to account. I wish somebody would jerk them out of their seats at the end of a working. Okay, let's not go down that road there, Jeff. I'm not going to say that on the air for you. Basically, straighten them up. Grown-up conversation. Yes, indeed. I will not read that, Jeff. Just keep in mind, epithets will not go anywhere. John from Huntsville says, Phil, spectacular monologue. Also, JP. Baja Blast is not even close to as good as a Mountain Dew Code Red, which happens to be one of my favorite sodas, and a Mexican pizza from Taco Bell is really not a pizza either.
Well, I'm not a big Mountain Dew guy. I've never had Taco Bell pizza.
Taco
So,
Bell makes pizza?
yeah, and I think that just that alone, pizza from Taco Bell is not very appetizing. So,
That's them trying too hard at that point.
yeah. I mean, what's the difference between a Mexican pizza and a normal pizza? I'd be willing to hear any arguments, but
There's something to be said for having a product and making it the best and staying on mission, aka Chick-fil-A.
yeah, yep.
I mean, what do? Friggin' good chicken,
Oh yeah.
and they don't play.
Mm-mm.
And I thought when they went added grilled as opposed to fried, you can get one. I thought, but it worked. It's still chicken.
It's still good.
It's
Yeah.
still chicken.
Yeah.
I'm still a little miffed they got rid of carrot and raisin salad. I'm a big fan of carrot and raisin salad.
I've never even had that from there.
What's because it's been gone
It's
your whole
probably been
lifetime,
gone my
probably.
whole lifetime,
I'm still mad. Last one. Jerry from Decatur says the war on garbage, airborne. He said, reminded me of the adult conversation Reagan had with the air traffic controllers. Yes, indeed, absolutely. Hey, by the way, I gotta take a sidebar here. Talk about adult conversations. The Democrats and I listen. I'm being partisan, and I know it, but they deserve it. So the Democrats right now are just so majoring in the minors. I mean, they're not even. It's like they're not even on the same planet right now. My comparison has constantly been the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. That's what it feels like. Alice is sitting there trying to figure out who these people are and what they're talking about. But that's where we are. The Democrats right now are more worried about whether or not Qatar is going to give us an airplane than they are about the fact that Trump just signed a $600 billion deal with Saudi Arabia. And I'll be honest with you, sooner or later, they're going to figure out Trump plays them like a cheap fiddle. My wife and I were talking about this. The lovely Charlene and I were talking about that airplane. And I have a theory I floated. I said, you wait and watch, babe. I said, I think this is like one of Trump's funny moments. And you know how he does, JP, where he'll have a thing, he'll say a thing, and the Democrats go crazy. And he waits till they get boxed in on their messaging, and then he comes back and go, you apparently misunderstood. Here's the rest of the story.
Well, I think that is, like you said, that's just another example. If they don't have anything of their own to produce message-wise, it's always trying to bash what Trump's doing. So when you're constantly, trying to talk about what he's saying and twist it to your own narrative, you're not actually producing anything worthwhile of your own narrative.
That's
so
right.
It makes them look stupid in the long run, like you said, and they just end up stepping in it.
I bet we're going to watch on that airplane too. And you're right. And I bet we're going to watch on that airplane. Remember the thing with Michael Waltz? Michael Waltz is out. Michael Waltz has been fired. Whoa, we got a story now. Oh boy, run with it all day long until Trump goes, by the way, he's going to be the next UN ambassador.
Yeah.
And everybody went, oh.
Let them scramble for
and
a
where'd
little
that
bit.
story go? Poof. Stop talking about it like immediately. I bet this airplane story, Qatar is apparently offered to give a $400 million like luxury flying palace to the United States to be used as a substitute Air Force One. Well, the sub story to this is Trump's been frustrated for years because Boeing has been building the next Air Force One, and they're way over budget, and they're like, we're at $1 billion on this airplane now, and they can't get it finished. And so Trump's been like, what's wrong with you, Boeing? You're Boeing, for God's sakes. Well, you watch Trump say, they didn't give it to us. We negotiated the deal, and I got it for, a good value, and we're going to buy it, and we're going to retrofit it and give it all the security measures it needs, and we're going to save the taxpayers $500 million. And I've canceled the contract with Boeing, and they can go pound sand. And everybody's going to go, Doge.
And it's a world-class jet too, And
it's a world-class jet with lots of gold leaf.
Yeah. It's, I will say the initial story didn't look like a great look, but I doubt that Trump was accepting a gift from Qatar. I think it's something more along the lines of what you said.
He's not going to, yeah, exactly. And by the way, it'll become a Department of Defense asset is what he had said. Mm-hmm. He didn't say, I look forward to adding it to Trump Force One, and it'll be parked in Mar-a-Lago. He never said that. Yeah. So I just see he is trolling. Trump is the master troller. And so between that and everything else, I think he just looks for ways to keep them on their heels. And they'll, but the thing is, it's like putting the shiny object in front of them and they chase it. Democrats, a squirrel, and then squirrel, and then a squirrel, and they just keep doing it.
And they don't even know what to focus on because there's so much happening. Their head's constantly spinning.
Because that's what happens when you have no agenda. That's what happens when you have no policies. That's what happens when you have no leadership. And it's certainly what happens when everybody's breaking down into factions and they're running around like Keystone Cops. Do you know what Keystone Cops are?
No.
Okay, anyway, they're running around like Keystone Cops.
I get the reference.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
it's madness. It's like trying to watch Australian rules football.
Okay.
You just don't know what's happening, but
Yeah.
it looks like a lot's happening, but you can't really tell what's happening.
You get the idea of what's happening, but not really.
I had to throw a sports analogy. That was the craziest sport I could think of was Australian rules football.
Yeah.
You ever watch that?
I mean, isn't that pretty much like rugby, or is it a whole separate thing?
Well, so I think it's rugby, but they got drunk
Yeah.
and they decided to add things. And then they said, but what if we did it kind of like soccer where you can kick, but no, we don't want to kick much. So let's just say that we're going to add some American football in there too.
Oh, okay. So it's like rugby and football had a
And how do we
baby,
feel about this? And everybody goes, hand me another beer and I'm good. And they did.
as the Aussies do.
And it became a sport. And it's only available in Australia.
Hey, I'm gonna have to check it out. That sounds intriguing.
You
actually.
notice there's no World Cup for Australian rules
No.
football.
And it's only in Australia.
It is absolute madness. All right, real quick, Connor from Huntsville checking in. He says, hey, Phil, this is Connor. Trump understands human nature, understands corporate behavior. He's able to create leverage points and then utilize that leverage unlike any politician that we've ever seen. And that's what really sets him apart as president from everything that I've seen the last 55 years of failed politics. Perfect. Connor, you may have to host the show for me because I don't know that I could have said it any better than that. Great point. I love the fact that he creates leverage points. That's a great way of describing it. John from Huntsville again says rugby is awesome and football should be more like rugby. Okay. Well, okay. All right, listen, we're going to come back from this next break here momentarily. And when I do, we're going to talk about Immigration Nation. There's a lot of stuff out there right now that the Democrats don't want to talk about. Things that we're correcting, things that we're discovering, things that we're shutting down. And I got some statistics to give you that are going to blow your mind. Just like watching what Trump has done in just a little over 100 days on the southern border. Is there any wonder why you don't see Mayorkas being called upon to give speeches right now? I mean, wow. Biden's trying to change his narrative. Kamala Harris is just trying to talk about electric school buses. And Mayorkas is nowhere to be seen. You know why? He has been shamed into non-existence. He has been shamed into irrelevance. He's lost his title. Now he's lost his relevance. And it's epic to watch because within just 100 days, the stats that I'll give you momentarily have shown that what it really took was leadership. All right, we're taking a break. We'll come right back from the break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just, I mean, like, man, making common sense like a superpower. Kill it on the new bumps there, JP.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have to catch myself because I'm not used to them yet.
Yeah.
And I did not realize over 4 years how much I'd gotten used to certain bumps at certain times.
Yep.
I could almost predict which one was going to be next.
Yeah, exactly. Like the one bump we had after your monologue. At first, I was like, I don't want to get rid of that.
I know.
Like, but I mean, yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do, I guess.
If you're hearing the new bumps, by the way, it's because we made an internal decision. I told JP, I said, I'm sick and tired of giving YouTube an excuse. So we're a growing company. We got a lot going on. And in recent months, we've had even more going on. So in order to prevent ourselves from constantly being locked out from one of the major platforms that we put our live stream on, even though we're on Rumble, X, and YouTube and radio and our website, all of it, we're just going to go ahead and remove the impediment, if you will. And so we now have changed out the bumps. Friggin' YouTube. If I say that on the line, if I say that on YouTube, are they going to lock me out?
It's like, no, you can say that all you want, but by gosh, if you play copyright songs, we're gonna get you.
Don't even play some Aerosmith, man. Dave from Capshaw, by the way, checked it in. He said, he said Trump stringing the Democrats along is like watching a cat chase a laser dot. They can't help themselves. It's true. John C. from Madison said, Australian no rules in football. That is about the way it feels. When you watch it, I've sat and watched it before, and I've just walked away going, I have no idea what just happened. It's that weird.
Yeah, I've never watched. I've watched rugby before, like in the Olympics, and it's awesome. I love watching it.
All right, let's talk about some stuff. So, Immigration Nation. Let me give you some stats. I think you'll enjoy this. You ready? I hold in my calloused former paratrooper hands a recent White House press release said, ready for this? Illegal border encounters are down by 95%. Illegal immigrant gotaways, which are one of the top threats to public safety, are down by 99%. 99%. Axios said that border crossings have plunged to the lowest level in decades, according to the new data. The New York Post said that the northern border sector, which had been overrun by illegal immigrants previously, sees a dramatic drop in crossings as we haven't seen anyone since November. Wow. Reuters said the migrant arrests at the U.S.-Mexico border in March are the lowest ever recorded. Since taking office, the Trump administration has arrested 150,000 plus illegal immigrants, deported 139 plus illegal immigrants, and released only 9 illegal immigrants into the U.S. Nine. That's a staggering 99.99% decrease over the same period last year under former President Joe Biden. The Washington Times says under Trump, the border catch and release has dropped 99.99% also from Biden's worst month. Good God, that's amazing. And by the way, some of those were liberal outlets confirming the details. How about this? Recent polling shows, according to Pew Research, 83% of Americans support deporting illegal immigrants. Sounds reasonable. I'd like to know who the 17% are that don't. 83% support deporting at least some illegal immigrants. Roughly 32% of Americans say they support deporting all illegal immigrants. And of those who only support deporting some, 97% are still in favor of removing anybody who's committed violent crimes while they're here. So what does this tell you? I think what it tells you, by the way, that I'm just going to go ahead and say that all deserves some applause. I think it did. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think what all that tells you is that Trump didn't just win an election. He won a mandate. And he won it doing and saying that he would do things that he's doing and saying again that he will continue doing. This is an entire new day, and we're watching it. It's unfolding in real time. We're not watching discussion about forming commissions to discuss things in greater detail, and perhaps we'll meet on this come next fall and then hold a conference in which we'll applaud ourselves for holding a conference. And that, no, he's just friggin' doing stuff, and it's working. Bill Maher, and by the way, I have developed a great deal of grudging respect for Bill Maher. I used to almost like I don't want to say despise, but I just couldn't abide by him. Not anymore. And the reason I say that is because I've noticed that he's willing to call balls and strikes. He doesn't just say, well, I'm a Democrat, therefore I'll only say good things about Democrats and only say bad things about Republicans. He calls the balls and the strikes. He has been calling out, and he says, I'm still an avowed liberal. Those are his words. I am still an avowed liberal. But he's telling Democrats, you better get your act together. I got a piece from Red State. It came out yesterday. Red State. Bill Maher had a simple message to Democrats who were upset about President Donald Trump's crackdown at the border. He said, basically, go look in the mirror, because that's what he's saying. Go blame yourself. Trump's only fixing what you guys did. And I see JP's got it up on the screen right now. There's Bill Maher's message to Democrats that basically go look in the mirror because you're the ones who caused this. Trump's message, says Bill Maher, is if you come here and we catch you, it might be worse for you. And that's a deterrent, he said. And it's working. And the number of people, he said, every action has a reaction. Maher also continued by pointing out that Biden went so stupidly far toward a pretty much come one, come all, just walk right in policy that they're going to have to own it to some degree. And that is the adult conversation I was talking about earlier. That's exactly what they need more of, that adult conversation. But despite the fact that I just read you stats, many of which are confirmed by liberal media outlets, and the fact that it's Bill Maher saying the things I just read, who is an avowed liberal, Democrats still can't figure out what to do with it, and so they continue to push back against it. And that, my friends, is a clear indication that they don't know what to do with themselves. We'll come back and talk about it more. Immigration Nation, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. issues. And oh, yeah, like the dude just said, solid conservative and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 on a Taco Tuesday. We're glad to have you. I'm in Dipper number 1, Immigration Nation. So the Immigration Nation, it is something else to watch what Trump has done. I read you a bunch of stats earlier before the show before this Dipper really got cranking. I had to give you the lay of the land first. Understand, a lot of these were liberal media outlets that were confirming that they see the data that says that we're looking at a 99.9% change on the southern border, a 95% overall in terms of illegal immigration. We're seeing a 95% reduction in gotaways even. All these things are happening, and the Trump administration is the reason why, because they all kicked in after Biden left office. And then I read to you the words of a liberal media icon, Bill Maher, a self-avowed liberal, but who was willing to say, I see something and it ain't right. It doesn't matter whether my people did it. I'm going to say it ain't right. And he's calling them out on their stand on illegal immigration, telling Democrats, you need to go look in the mirror. Because the things you're complaining about with Trump, all he's doing is what he said he would do, which, by the way, is fixing what you did. That being said, let's talk about some of what they're still doing, because Democrats are so busy majoring in the minors right now that they're only, you said it, I think, a while ago, they're only thing they've got is to push back against anything Trump does. They don't have any plans or policies or things they stand for, nothing. So how about this? What was it, yesterday? I guess we talked about the invasion of the insurrection at the ICE center, the ICE detention center in Newark, New Jersey. By the way, there's news coming down, breaking news on that. I will say this, breaking news on that out of DC is that a resolution has already been introduced on the House floor to strip each of 3 members of Congress who resisted the police and tried to storm the ICE detention center, to strip them of their committee assignments. And just so you know, that may say, well, what good is that? Why is that even a big deal? Just so you know, that's a big part of life as a congressperson or senator. Your committee assignments, your potential for chairmanships, that's where a lot of your work comes. That's where you make your bones. That's a job. This is like, just picture this. It's like an athlete being told you have to sit on the bench. All right. They just got benched. It's not done yet, but we're working on it. How about this? They're not done in Newark. Story here from Fox News. Dozens of clergy members, pray tell, what church would they be from? Clergy members. You know what? I do believe that last I checked, the Reverend Al Sharpton is also a clergy member. The clergy member block the gates. Okay, so they're not protesting. They're interfering. There's a difference. The group composed of roughly 50 clergy members from 2 groups, one called Faith in New Jersey, another one called Faith in Action. It sounds an awful lot like a Al Sharpton mode, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Because they linked arms outside the main gate of the Delaney Hall Detention Center, chanting and singing songs. Well, of course they did, because that's what they do. The clergy members say they have, quote, volunteered to be arrested and that they will be attempting to enter the ICE facility. How about no? Actually, at one point, an ambulance tried to get through the crowd to get in, and the crowd would not let the ambulance get in. Interesting. At least 2 of them were arrested by police during the event. In response to a Fox News report on the events on Monday, Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin asked, who do they want released from Delaney Hall? Do they want the child rapists, the murderers, the drug traffickers, the MS-13 gang members, the known terrorists? Well, okay. So part of the complaint here is that this is a torture center. In fact, which one do I? Here it is. I got a separate article from Town Hall. Town Hall, Dateline, yesterday. The ICE detention center, which Democrats describe as a torture chamber. A torture chamber. So let me get this straight. Y'all are they're going to argue that right there in Newark, New Jersey, we've set up a black site where we waterboard illegal aliens. Is that what we're going to say? Well, what we see now is this is a torture center. What does torture mean? Well, I don't know. I don't think they're getting conjugal visits like they should. Well, I don't know. Maybe they're not getting enough frijoles with their tortillas. I don't know. What's torture? There's no torture. In fact, Rachel Campos showed them exactly. Now, I will say this. I do know that Rachel Campos Duffy is married to Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy. So she probably had a pretty easy way of getting in. But she made an appointment. Oh, really? Yes, she did. She showed them what you can do. Because remember, the Democrats said, we have a right to inspect. They just stood up at the gate with a bunch of protesters and demanded entry. Doesn't work like that. Rachel Campos Duffy, in an epic troll on Democrats, according to Town Hall, literally booked an appointment at the ICE detention facility and then toured it, saying apparently ICE has nothing to hide. She toured the ICE detention facility, knowing full well that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is also have a scheduled visit, said she found it to be clean, well-equipped, and transparent, contrary to the negative image portrayed, saying they have everything from recreation areas, legal access, communication tools for detainees. Said it looks more like a high school than a detention center. Here's the part that got me. They also have signs on the walls in both Spanish and English offering people the opportunity to go home if they will self-deport, and they'll be given $1,000 and a free plane ride. What torture center in the world tells people, here's an easy way to leave, and we'll actually pay you to do it? I can't think of one. Can you?
There isn't one.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So that's, but yet, so I ask you, the same question is what the DHS official asked. Who do they want released? They're protesting. Who do they want let out? Well, at least let the rapists out. Okay. At least let the child traffickers out. They don't. How about this? What if we said, just out of the blue, what if we said, cool, here's what we'll do. We're going to ankle bracelet these people and we're going to put them in your house. Will you agree to that? No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't. Not for a second. They wouldn't let them in their neighborhood. They wouldn't let them in their city. Their constituents would have a complete come apart if they did that. Some of what we're dealing with right now, too. I got a piece here that I pulled from Fox also. There's another gang that's rising up. It's actually, it's apparently it's sort of disabused or refugees, if you will, who have left Tren de Aragua because they didn't think it was violent enough. So they formed a separate gang called the Anti-Tren. And the Anti-Tren, federal authorities are now saying, is another Venezuelan gang which is rising up and has a tendency to be potentially more violent and more dangerous than Tren de Aragua itself. Why? Because they are having to prove themselves. It says they're doing violence in an environment which are taking advantage of people, and they're also taking advantage of the homeless, and they're taking advantage of rural America. So they're going places where the gangs have been. We got to watch out for it. But yet Democrats are protesting in their favor. About this, Immigration Nation. About this. The Federalist, Dateline yesterday. Department of Homeland Security is now probing whether or not California's non-citizen handout program is paying ineligible illegal aliens. So the bottom line is part of the carrot, the stick, is to get rid of the carrot altogether. The carrot's got to be gone on illegal immigration. It's got to be nothing but stick. And that's what's happening. The Trump administration is investigating whether or not California's cash assistance program for immigrants, it's called the CAPI program, that pays state money to non-citizens who are not eligible for Social Security, is basically paying ineligible residents. And the answer to that's going to wind up being yes. I mean, get this. The $1,206 a month they're paying out right now in California for illegals. $1,206 a month. You just get free money. You come across the border, you start sucking down resources. Hey, we'll take care of you. Where are you from? Doesn't matter anyway. You're not supposed to be here? Yeah, it doesn't matter anyway. You know what? How much money you want? Here you go. Sign up. Use a fake name if you need to. Hey, by the way, sign up 3 times. It'll be great. Use fake names 3 times. It'll be great. You got no identifying? It's okay. We don't need identifying. Where do you want us to mail the check? Oh, you don't have it. I'll tell you what. We'll just we'll give you an EBT card and we'll keep refilling it. Oh, we don't care if you have, control over it. It's all right. We're going to give it to you because we feel good that way. That's called responsible governance. said nobody in the whole world ever. According to DHS, the subpoena that's been sent to California requests applicant information, including names and dates of birth, application copies, immigration status, proof of ineligibility for Social Security. Kristi Noem, Secretary of Homeland Security, said radical left politicians in California are prioritizing illegal aliens over our own citizens, including by giving illegal aliens access to cash benefits. So what they're trying to do, she says, is shut the gravy train off. And that's exactly what needs to happen. All right, I'm going to wrap this up after the break. We'll come right back. I'll finish up Immigration Nation. You guys got thoughts on it? You're welcome to text in 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text or call it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, hey, I gotta just I'm gonna put a wrap on this section on the Immigration Nation, but I gotta tell you a couple things real quickly. Aside from dealing with California's sanctuary policies, I think it's fair to point out that, and I pulled this off of fairus.org. That's the Foundation for American Immigration Reform. Attorney General Pam Bondi is suing Colorado and the city of Denver itself, challenging their sanctuary policies. You may remember it's Colorado where the Tren de Aragua gang took over the entire apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado, outside of Denver. And anyway, the end result is they actually have books on or laws on the books in Colorado that were passed by their liberal state legislature that basically obstruct the federal government's ability to enforce immigration laws. Pam Bondi saying, not on my watch, and I'm glad of it. And the last one I'll say is Trump just had a big win. Fox News reports as of yesterday, a federal judge is allowing the IRS to share illegal alien data with the Department of Homeland Security. This is another one of those things being fought because, you can't let Trump actually secure the borders and, get rid of illegal criminals. So now Social Security, if it has information on people who are here illegally, is now required to give it over to Department of Homeland Security so it can be used in the efforts to secure the border. But here's part of the hypocrisy we're dealing with. And one of the strangest stories that I think is out there right now. And keep in mind, we're talking about the people who had open borders policy that allowed tens of millions of illegals to stream into our country unfettered for the last 4 years. They are mad right now because Trump is allowing some Africa to come in. What? You can't make this stuff up. By the way, if you have stories, I pulled a couple of pieces off, one off of Daily Wire and one off of the Federalist. If you've not seen the stories of the thing in Africa right now, and I realize that South Africa has a checkered past. I do. I realize that apartheid was a thing. I do. I realize that there were decades of Black citizens of South Africa being oppressed. I do. The tables have turned, and guess what? Two wrongs don't make a right. What we're watching now is that white Africans in South Africa are now being persecuted, and there's even some who say there is a genocidal movement right now. Entire stadiums of people were chanting to kill white people, and I watched the videos. It's real. Chanting to kill white people in South Africa. And then on top of that, they just passed a law in the South African parliament that allows the seizure of land from white South Africans if indeed there is a challenge and it's believed that they own too much land. What? Yeah. So there are some who just want out now. The country they grew up in, generations, they're saying, we're done. How many came, Phil? How many came from South Africa? Was it millions? No. Was it thousands? No. Was it hundreds? No. How many was it, Phil? 60. Really? Yep. Trump gave approval for 60 to arrive from South Africa. And they did. On Monday, dozens of South Africans, primarily white Afrikaner farmers, arrived in the United States, having been granted refugee status by the Trump administration. The propaganda press immediately responded by implicitly accusing the administration of hypocrisy and racial bias. How disingenuous is that? You let anybody in, but now you're going to say we can't let anybody in. In protest came the Episcopal Church. Put that back on the screen there if you wouldn't mind, please. Up on the screen right now, if you're watching the live stream, Daily Wire has the story. The Episcopal Church has now refused to resettle white South African refugees, citing racial justice commitments. So the Episcopal Church's refugee resettlement organization has now refused to help white South African refugees. Presiding Bishop Sean Rowe announced a decision on behalf of the Episcopal Migration on Monday, just a day after 49 South Africans began their journey to the U.S. So Trump's approved 60, 49 are here. In the Episcopal Church, which has been doing an amazing amount of work to help illegal immigrants from South America, Central America, and anybody else the Biden administration let in, is saying, oh, but not them, though. We refuse to help with that. Because I guess their version of, Christian sympathy and empathy only extends to those that they deem to be politically correct. I'm not sure what the Episcopal Church is thinking they're going to gain from this. And apparently they don't really care. But I look at that and find that to be one of the most hypocritical, lame, and deleterious things I've ever seen. So yeah, South Africans are being persecuted, mass murders. I saw an image of the white crosses running the length of a road for a mile. Every cross represented a white South African who had been killed. And the Episcopal Church says, well, if they come here, we're not helping. Go figure, liberals.
If you saw the video of them at the airport when they were getting picked up to come here,
yeah,
they were all wearing or had American flags, and they were all proudly waving it.
Yes.
And so the difference isn't anything about race. The difference is the immigrants that the left wanted to come in, they were waving anti-American flags. They were, expressing everything anti-American, where they were excited to come here. So it's nothing about race, everything about character.
I think I even had an article I didn't get to, now that you say that said that the difference is that Trump's willing to have people come to America who want to be a part of America.
Yeah.
It's a huge difference. All right, we're switching gears. When we get back, Righting the Wrongs. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Man, covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew. It goes from Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga, from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. I'm talking about all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, and straight across the border from there to what we once again get to call Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio. Then there's the online streaming, folks. We got a ton of y'all that just dial in every single day. No matter where you are in the big wide world, go to the World Wide Web, tune in to rightsidemedia.org, or pick us up on YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, all over the place. Rightsidemedia.org has got links to all of it. And yes, we do live stream the show, and a bunch of y'all worldwide know that. We appreciate it. Let me go to the phones real quick. Mike from Harvest. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Senator Williams. And yourself, sir?
I'm good. What's on your mind, man?
You're looking far more relaxed today than you were yesterday.
I had my lawyer uniform on yesterday. Today, I'm the semi-casual lawyer.
I suspected that might have been the case. Reason I was calling was, you don't have to look far to see what South Africa is going to become. Just look north to see what Zimbabwe looks like.
Oh, yeah.
Because, with all of the driving the white Afrikaners off of the farmland, it will be passed out as gifts to those who have connections to the ruling party, and they don't know how to farm. So it either goes to waste, or they might find some sharecroppers to do that. Because that was the issue that happened in Zimbabwe, because it used to be Rhodesia before that.
Right.
And it used to be the breadbasket of Africa.
Yeah, sure was. It absolutely was. And it's not that they're not capable. It's like that they just don't want to. And Zimbabwe, you're right, has totally gone downhill. Sooner or later, they're going to realize that reversing the racism in the opposite direction is not really the solution. But they're not there yet, apparently. And South Africa is just cascading down right now.
It is, and it's a shame to see it. It's a country with incredible, resources that could be benefiting all the people of South Africa.
Yeah,
but that won't happen with the communist mindset and perpetual victimhood that they have. So,
well,
thank you very much for taking my call, sir. And I hope you and JP have a wonderful day, sir.
Thanks, Mike. You too. Take care. He's not wrong. And when you take a country that is functional, although it has problems, and then your version of fixing the problems is to reverse them and make them bigger problems in the opposite direction, it's not a solution. It's literally disastrous right now. Basically, South Africa is eating itself alive.
And I mean, these are people that are genuinely fleeing something, unlike these MS-13 members and a rival gang wants to kill me.
Yeah.
Don't be in a gang.
Don't be in a gang. Here's an idea.
But these are people like that, like you said, stadiums filled with them saying, kill the white farmers. Like, they are genuinely fleeing for their life, and they're willing to assimilate to the U.S. and they actually want to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah, they do. Tom, with all the kids in Huntsville, says regarding the Episcopal Church, says take away their nonprofit status. As soon as we do that, somebody will be in office as a liberal, and they'll say, "Hey, how about this? The evangelicals take away their status because they don't support abortions." Listen, I'm not for that, but I do think that the Episcopal Church is making its bed right now, if you know what I'm saying. And when they look around and wonder why their population base has gone down, or why they are catering to people that won't give charitable contributions anymore, and they're not sure how to keep the doors open, then it's going to be a whole new day. Look what happened to the Methodist Church of most recently, and it's painful, but there it is. I went to Methodist Church when I was a kid. And I'm just going to tell you, it's something to watch. The entire Methodist Church go into a split, and it's only because you have liberal progressives that are determined to take the church away from Scripture and do things that aren't intended. And then there are those who are like, no, not on our watch. We believe in Jesus and the Word of God is unerring. And so, how about no? Two churches now.
If you remember the Episcopalian, it was that bishop that gave Trump the
Oh yeah,
the talking down to on immigration right before he was inaugurated or
Yeah.
after he was inaugurated.
classic.
So it's not shocking.
So pretentious, just epically pretentious. Marcus from Huntsville said Democrats have allowed more people on the terrorist watch list in the country than South African refugees. They should let that sink in before they die on this hill. Point. Dave from Capshaw, Alabama says, hey, Phil, do you think the money California is giving to illegals is coming from sources like USAID or are California residents footing the bill? So, which I highly doubt, as the libs rarely use their own money for anything. No, it's actually a budget item. The state legislature passed it as a budget item, so it's coming from the state coffers. Now, if the money is fungible and the state is reallocating dollars it gets from the feds, it's still money that was the state's to use, and they chose to use it for this because the state legislature actually passed a law and a budget that included this as a line item. Dana from Athens says all those benefits should have stopped on January 21st. I agree. They absolutely should have. And that's why Pam Bondi is suing. Thomas from Athens has got something that I'll bring up later on, but thank you very much, Thomas. Brian from Decatur says, what have you heard about election integrity laws? Okay, that's not on my topic right now, but thank you, Brian. I might look back at that later. I appreciate it. Last one, Britt from Athens. This is what happens when churches care more about social issues than Scripture. Amen. I guess this is going to be a short dipper because coming up top of the hour for the third hour, we're going to start off with a call from someone who I deeply respect and think the world of, Nicole Wilson. She runs an organization called Fortify Alabama. And Nicole Wilson specializes in dealing with human trafficking. I'm going to let her talk about the issues as she sees it. And then we're going to get into that even more when it comes to kids. But let me do this first. Before I go any further, I got a few stories here. I kept seeing things. I thought, that's just President Trump righting some wrongs. Some of them were literally created by Democrats. Some of them, in my opinion, were bipartisan in their wrongness. Is that a word? Wrongfulness. Did I say wrongness?
Yeah, but who cares?
It's my microphone. If I want to say wrongness, I can.
Nobody. The grammar police isn't here today.
Well, the grammar police is out there too busy changing pronouns.
Yeah, that was good.
Like, for instance, some of the wrongness that's being corrected. I don't know if you saw, this is a big deal yesterday, but there was a press conference. Story here on Fox News is where I picked it up. But the press conference yesterday with President Trump and RFK, who is now his Secretary of Health and Human Services, literally going after Big Pharma. So the point was made. RFK even asked him, he said, I think you took Big Pharma money for your campaign. He goes, I did, but apparently it doesn't influence me. But the principle is simple. What they're doing right now is they're cutting drug prices. And I don't know how they're going to implement this, but I will say this is definitely righting a wrong. When you look at the stats that say that the United States accounts for 42% of all pharmaceuticals use worldwide, and yet we also account for 75% of the profits to the big pharma companies worldwide. That's a clear indication that A, we as a nation may be over-medicated, but that B, we're certainly overpriced. People are paying through the nose for things that people won't pay that for the same thing in another country. It makes no sense whatsoever. So Trump has said, we're going to do what's called most favored nations drug pricing. What does this mean? He said the principle is simple. Whatever the lowest price paid for a drug in other developed countries, that's the price Americans will pay. Now, I'm not sure how he's going to do this. I think he can direct traffic on things like Medicare, TRICARE, and other federal medical insurance policies. I think he can do it for plans that are provided for federal employees. This is going to be a huge hit to the industry. If only some's in and some's not, but it's going to be a huge hit no matter what. So here's the thing. Trump says, starting today, that's yesterday, the United States will no longer subsidize the healthcare of foreign countries, which is what we're doing. He said we're subsidizing others' healthcare. the countries where they pay a small fraction for the same drug that we pay many, many times for here. And we're no longer going to tolerate profiteering and price gouging from big pharma. That's amazing. That's huge. That's if any of you out there, and I'm sure in an audience this size, there's a bunch of y'all out there that have prescriptions, and you may have major health issues in your family that require big out-of-pocket expense. I don't know how this is going to get implemented, and I'm curious to watch it develop. But I love the fact that he's addressing it this way and saying, what a novel idea. If the lowest price, if we pay $100 for something here, and then say, I don't know, Switzerland, the exact same drug cost $23. Guess what we're going to pay here? He says $23. We'll see. There's that. I love this righting a wrong. The House Energy and Commerce Committee has announced a portion of its reconciliation bill, the big beautiful bill, is going to slash taxpayer funding to Planned Parenthood. Whoop, whoop. Can I just have an amen on that one? That's just nothing but good. Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. JP, quick on the buttons. Congress can defund Planned Parenthood now, says former Vice President Mike Pence. He can. Planned Parenthood also refers to itself as the second largest provider of hormone therapies for transgenders. I'm saying stop the madness. And then one more thing you might want to know about, and I'll save one for after the break. One more thing you might want to know about is Trump's one big beautiful bill. The House draft on that appears to be moving towards having no tax on tips and no tax on overtime. By the way, let it sink in that the Trump and Republican congressional efforts on tax relief include no tax on overtime, but Republicans in Alabama just let a no tax on overtime bill expire and not renew it, despite the fact that it was working quite well. Why? They want your money. That's why. Don't you understand? That's money we can spend. That's your argument. That's exactly what they're saying. Anyway, the bottom line is right now, we're looking at major tax cuts across the board in a variety of ways, including a renewal of the Trump tax cuts from before, and, oh, by the way, adding on no tax on tips and no tax on overtime. House Ways and Means Committee on Monday approved this, and we will wait and see whether they can get it passed. But that's also very favorable in terms of righting the wrongs. All right, take me to a break there, JP. We'll take that break. We'll come right back. And I got one more on righting the wrongs. And when I saw it, I grabbed it because this drives me crazy. What is the least favorable option in a modern vehicle that drives us all crazy? It's about to get fixed. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. All right, listen, I got one more here in the quick dipper that we're doing called Righting the Wrongs. I don't know about y'all. Okay, so I drive a Jeep. It's my chosen vehicle. It's like the 5th Jeep that I've owned over time, but I drive a Jeep Gladiator. Love my Jeep. Love my Jeep truck Gladiator. Its name is Maximus, just so you know. But anyway, my Jeep has a couple of things that drive me crazy. And they're not anything about being a Jeep. They're things about having to deal with wokeness that gets involved in building cars. So first of all, the touchscreen that comes up, I can link my phone to it, all that kind of stuff, except that every single time I turn on my radio, the first thing that happens is a little screen pops up and I have to push to accept that I promise to use the rules of the road when driving. My God. Really? It's not enough that I've been licensed by my state to drive under the rules of the road, but I have to now prove to my vehicle that I have now been authorized to use the vehicle because I've agreed to abide by the rules of the road. I find that to be maddening. So please, Jeep makers, stop it. But here's the other one. My Gladiator was the first vehicle I ever got that had this weird little button on the dash. It's like a little A with a kind of a circular arrow running around it. What's this button? Hey, why did my car just shut off when I got to the red light? What is this? Well, it's the former Environmental Protection Agency's start-stop technology that was highly recommended to help save fuel economy in gas-burning engines. Basically, you stop at a red light and everything shuts down. Your air will keep running, but if you're like me, you've noticed that it actually gets a little warmer because it doesn't blow good. Your radio will stay on, but just so you know, other features in the car might not be as available. And your car sits there, and then when you lift your foot off the brake to go, the engine starts back up. I was always told that starting and stopping the engine, one of the hardest things on the engine is the starting of the engine overall. It's hard on the starter. It's hard on the engine itself. It's kicking off when the oil has not been as circulated. And so now you're telling me that every time I stop at a red light, that's going to happen. Well, this start-stop technology is maddening. I realized quickly the button gives me the chance to disengage that process. And then I went back and thought, maybe it actually works. And so I left it in place for a while. I could not find any difference in my mileage. None. President Donald Trump, according to Daily Wire, President Donald Trump's Environmental Protection Agency is on a mission to fix the despised start-stop technology in newer cars that shuts down. I'm curious how many of y'all are out there wishing you could turn that thing off or hate it so much that you'd like to just pop the button out of the dash and sling it out of the concrete. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin said on Monday his agency would begin looking into how it can modify the start-stop feature. Said the EPA currently incentivizes car manufacturers to make their cars with start-stop systems. So this was a woke virtue signal from a Biden-era EPA. Anyway, says start-stop technology was first used in European car manufacturers. Well, yay. By 2019, however, more automakers began giving drivers the option to shut it off. Okay. Buick first gave drivers that option with its 2019 Envision. And then next thing you know, all God's children who make cars were putting it in there. So while most cars with start-stop technology allow drivers to deactivate it, they can't turn it off permanently. You have to do it every time you get in the car. It's crazy. I think it's the most worthless thing I've ever seen. It's also a little disconcerting when you're thinking, okay, I've got to take the corner now or I could miss my gap in traffic. And then you realize your engine's not on. Talk about range anxiety. All I want to know is anybody else out there glad to hear that you're not, that let me ask you this. Is anybody else out there besides me frustrated with this? Apparently they are, because Lee Zeldin from the EPA says we're dealing with this one. But you have it in your car? You don't, do you?
Nah, I drive a 2013 Honda Accord. I don't think it's in that one. No.
Okay, you are pre-woke Honda.
Yeah, pre-woke Honda. Yeah.
Pre-woke Honda. That's like the Nike hat that I have. That is what I call my pre-woke Nike hat.
I don't know. I think they've always been woke.
Which it's about to go away because I don't know that I can even abide by that. But all right, all that to say, folks, they're fixing some wrongs, and I'm liking it. Righting some wrongs. That was the short dipper we just did. We're going to come back here in a minute, and we're going to switch gears to another topic. And I'm going to be honest with you, this topic has got some weight to it. We're going to talk about trafficking of kids. We're going to talk about what happens when trafficking occurs. We're going to talk about some of the things that are out there in the world that you should be praying against for your children. And when you hear this, I hope what you're going to also do is go back and begin looking at what have I got in my house that makes my child in any way vulnerable, and how do I fix it? Because the things we're going to talk about coming up with my friend Nicole Wilson, who runs a business called Fortify Alabama, is pretty amazing, and it's pretty heavy. And I would encourage you to stay tuned in. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
listening live to Right.
National, and oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number three on a Taco Tuesday. I'm not even sure where the first 2 hours went, but listen, we're going to jump into a topic right now that is, it is weighty, but it is necessary. It is complex, but yet it's also really simple if you get down to it, because there are some things that are just wrong on their face, and you have to address them. And I'm thankful for the fact that we have people out there who will address them. I gotta quickly, before I bring a guest on, is tell you there's a story that came out just a couple of days ago on 1819 News in Bibb County, Alabama. So what I'm telling you about is a story that is not from out there somewhere. It's here in Bibb County, Alabama. A 29-year-old guy named Andre Trejo Velasquez of Brent, which is a community in Bibb County, was charged with 6 counts of first-degree human trafficking. We don't know where he's from or whether he's legal or status or not. Doesn't matter. The bottom line is he was trafficking children for sex. These children, the victims, ranged in age from 2 to 10. 2 to 10. At the tender ages of 2 years old up to 10 years old, this guy is making money off of trafficking them to people who will also be perpetrators and participate in the crime. It's pretty sick. There's a lot of other things that are extraneous to this, like drugs and alcohol, mental condition, family ties, all of it in this guy's background. Doesn't matter. What we have now is a human trafficking nightmare in our country. And it's also here. Somebody who knows that extremely well and has got a background in helping to deal with it and to deal with the victims is Nicole Wilson. She has a business called Fortify Alabama, which is doing great work, and they specialize in addressing it through prevention, intervention, and support. And she's on the phone right now. Nicole Wilson, how are you doing?
Hey, Phil. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for making time for us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Listen, I think it's also really important that people not only recognize this as a problem, but it's a problem in our own backyard. And so you started Fortify Alabama because it's here in Alabama.
Right. Yeah. 3 years ago, I had never even had a conversation about human trafficking. And I had no idea what it was, what was going on. And I don't believe in coincidences. I like to call them God winks. But through a series of those winks and open doors, I found myself leading a group called Trafficking Hope through Church of the Highlands that was focused on education and awareness. But the more that I learned and the more that I saw, it really didn't take me long to realize that we need to do more in our community. So I decided to go more boots on the ground, and that's how Fortify was established, to still focus on education and awareness, bringing out people out from that bubble, but also to help address the problem itself.
Well, so when Fortify Alabama does its work, I mean, what are you doing? Give us a day in the life of Fortify Alabama as an organization. What exactly because what I think is important is you just said something that everybody in our listening audience needs to grab hold of, is that you had one of those moments where you were just kind of involved with something through your church. It has grown now to where you have your own 501c3. You are running it. You have a board of directors and you're doing work. But what does work look like for you?
Right. So we have the prevention side of it, which is the education and awareness that you briefly touched on. And the awareness is just the awareness booths.
Oh, did we lose her? I tell you what, then we can get her right back. I will tell you this, Nicole and her group do amazing work. I remember one of the things that I think it was her I was talking to is that, and JP, yeah, she comes back on, just give me the thumbs up. I think he's getting her right now. Is that they find the victims at all kinds of places where you and I might be going and not even realizing it's happening right next to us. Got her back on the line. Nicole, you back?
Yeah, sorry about that. It dropped on me.
That's okay.
Yeah, so we also do training and educational workshops with companies, churches, anybody who will listen. We have an annual Fortify Alabama anti-human trafficking conference where we bring together experts in law enforcement, community members to just share the knowledge, best practices, things like that. We offer CU credits for that. But when we get into the intervention side of it, that's going to be more, we focus on motel outreach. So we're actually going to the motels and passing out roses to the women, trying to have conversations with them. We even talk to the traffickers. And then we also start getting into online outreach, which is where we are using a software basically to reach out to the escort ads themselves, and just trying to start up a conversation to see if the women would like resources, prayer, anything like that. And then the last side of it is our support side. And that was one that I learned really early on, but it surprises a lot of people, is animal support. So a trafficking victim, much like a domestic violence victim, will not leave their situation if there is a loved pet involved. They're afraid that their trafficker, their abuser, will harm or kill the animal. So in order to remove that barrier, we've partnered with local rescues to take in those animals.
Wow. And then you don't think about that kind of stuff. You'd almost like to believe they're desperate to get out and they'll leave at a moment's notice, but sometimes they're so beaten down that the pet that's there is their only lifeline to normalcy. And so you're saying they won't leave sometimes because of that.
Yeah, I mean, that pet loves them unconditionally. So it's just another way to kind of trap them in their situation.
I saw a statistic on your website that says on the average, it takes 5 to 7 times for a victim to get out of their trafficking situation. What does that mean?
Yeah, so it can take a lot depending on the situation. You're just planting seeds, especially with the motel outreach. It could take multiple attempts for them to realize that they should leave that situation, or they will try to leave that situation and then they'll run away, whether it's because of drugs, trauma bonding. There's multiple scenarios of why they would run away and not stick to the restoration part of their healing.
So you don't think about it, but there's different kinds of trafficking. There's sex trafficking, obviously, and there's labor trafficking. Do you see that in your work?
We do. We see some labor trafficking. We've helped with a couple of cases. And that one, it's tough because there's a lot of language barriers with that one. So we don't have enough translators, honestly, to even touch labor trafficking the way that it should be assisted.
Which one in our area, just for this listening area alone, which one do you think is more prolific, the labor trafficking or the sex trafficking?
We're probably seeing more labor trafficking, honestly. At least the labor trafficking is more in your face. And one example that was given to me with labor trafficking is if you ever go to one of those intersections, and I'm not saying this is every single circumstance, but when you go to those intersections and there's people with buckets and they're asking for money, a lot of times those are labor trafficking situations where they have to make a certain quota of what money that they have to bring back before they can get food or a bed to sleep in that night or whatever the case may be. So those situations, not always are they raising money for an organization or a church. They're actually being trafficked to work in those and ask for money on those intersections.
Well, and how much of this do you see with kids versus somebody over the age of majority? Is this? And I know that sex trafficking, like I just read out the story, the 1819 News has another one of those heinous stories about children as young as 2 being trafficked right here in Alabama. But in your work, in your experience, or if that matter, just in relating to other organizations like yours, how much of what we're seeing right now is children and how much is adults?
We see on our line more adults, which honestly, to be frank, I'm thankful for, because the child side of it is really tough to see. We have seen a couple of circumstances with child labor trafficking where they were teenagers. It's not the extreme where you're seeing that 2-year-old to 10-year-old phase. Now, I will say when it comes to child trafficking, a lot the worst statistic, in my opinion, is how much of it is familial trafficking, which they average around 40% is trafficking cases for children are through a family member. And 50% of that is their mothers doing it.
Wow. So you're talking about kids, you're talking about being farmed out for sex, or you're talking about farmed out for labor? What are you saying?
Bit of both.
Oh,
But
both.
mostly with that, when they're talking about that, they're talking about sex.
Well, okay, we got a couple minutes left here with just you and I talking, but if I mean, one of the things that really shocked me was when I read something that said that truck stops are a major hub for trafficking. I had never dawned to me, and this has been years ago now, obviously, but it had never dawned to me that when I stop at a truck stop for gas and I go inside to get a cup of coffee, and I don't realize what may be happening out there in that vast yard full of 18-wheelers that could be involving trafficking or sex trafficking or anything else. What are the hubs? What are the places that people should be aware of? And I know that sometimes it's see something, say something. What do you recommend people, be aware of in certain locales?
Yeah, I mean, the motels are a popular hub. You're going to see also, like you said, with the trafficking or the trucking stops. But honestly, with sex trafficking, most of the business is being handled online now, which makes it really difficult to spot out in the world. So a lot of it is handled through escort ads or personal ads. So that technology piece has made it very difficult for people to track and to try to help in those situations.
In Alabama, are there any hotbed areas? Do you see it more in rural? Do you see it more in big cities? What do you tend to see?
Yeah, I mean, the big cities are really bad. Huntsville, for example, where we're stationed, is kind of that Bermuda Triangle because we're getting a lot of trafficking through Nashville, Atlanta, and Birmingham is just funneling it through the highways. So, and then another circumstance would be our strip clubs too. They're a hot spot for trafficking.
Well, and in some of these, you might almost like expect it in a sense, but I think the other thing that people have to be aware of is that sometimes you might see something in a diner, in a restaurant, a kid buying medical supplies at a convenience store, and it just doesn't feel right. And I guess what I'm saying is I would encourage our listeners to see something, say something. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Nicole, thank you for Fortify Alabama. Thank you for what you all do. I'm going to be spending some time unpacking this topic a little further, but appreciate your work, and you're welcome back on the show anytime. All right.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. That's Nicole Wilson. And by the way, they do have a website, fortifyalabama.com, has all their stuff on there. And yes, she's based out of Huntsville. And we actually met, I've forgotten what big dinner we were at. And it was Allie from Athens who actually introduced me to her. So one of our listeners introduced me to the person you just heard. And there's an amazing amount of, it's like there's the never ending level of work to be done on the issue. We'll take a break. We'll come right back. We'll talk about it in more detail. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. How about this? Save one kid. The things that are out there, and I've wondered several times: is our society contain more depraved people, or is it just easier to find them because they are the inhibitions have been reduced, that the barriers have been removed, that in some way the standards have been lowered? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. I believe that some of what we see nowadays in terms of perpetrators towards kids was probably happening 1,000 years ago. It probably was. I just feel like there is, to some degree, it is ramped up in modern society. Maybe it's the access that they have to kids. Maybe it's the technology that allows them to hide it or to advance it or to multiply it. Maybe it's the fact that we are a more populous nation, and so people can come and go quicker and jump in the fray and jump back out. I don't know the answer to that. All I know is there's a whole lot of crap out there dealing with our kids. I've got a story that is, so I guess, and when I say some of this stuff right now, you guys understand me. I have worked with abused kids before, and it breaks my heart, but I think it has to be talked about. So for the next few minutes, as we talk about this stuff, if you have your kids in the room, you might want to consider whether they should listen to it. But I hope you will. I've got a story here that I pulled off of Yahoo News. It's only a couple of weeks old. FBI has opened 250 investigations to an online violent network called 764 that preys on teens. 764. So it's only a couple of years old, but this is the level of depravity that people have as they try to reach kids. Bradley Cadenhead apparently is now serving an 80-year prison sentence in Texas for starting this 764 group through Discord, which is an online platform that a lot of people communicate through, like when they're playing video games and all that kind of stuff. He called it 764 because his zip code had the numbers 7, 6, and 4 in it. He lived in Texas. Okay. He apparently was one of these people that believes in the more blood and sexual violence he can see, the better. And then began to believe that it was great to see it in kids. And so 764 is now filled up. It's a worldwide movement. It became global in just a short amount of time. It has all kinds of offshoots and subgroups, and they rebrand themselves occasionally, but they're all part of the same thing. And what they literally do is they prey on kids through online networks and then convince them that if they don't do certain things and let us see you do it, that we will kill your family, or we'll take the images we've already got of you now and we'll publish them to your friends. And sometimes we're talking about kids that are, single digits old. And of course, a lot of teenagers. One Connecticut mother said, "This is extremely scary and frightening. We didn't raise our daughter this way. We don't know how it happened." But the mother says that basically when the daughter was arrested because she had been making bomb threats in her own community, they found pornographic photos of herself, photos of her in self-mutilation, photos of her paying homage to 764. And all the things that she were doing with the bomb making was in some way to give 764 one more thing to see. And these people will actually try to raise their own stature. It's a thing. They set up chat groups and they watch it online. One guy stages it and the rest of them log in to watch it. And it's like a badge of honor for them to see how much harm they can get out of a victim while they watch it online and then resell the videos later. It's designed, they say their own stated goal is to sow chaos and bring down society. So to start with kids. And that's happening right now in America. Tim Tebow has got a brand new project. And when we get back from this break, because I don't have time to play it for the break, but when we get back from this break, I'm going to play you a clip. He just did an interview with Sean Ryan, one of the largest podcasters in the world. And Sean Ryan interviewing the former NFL star about his new goal to pass something in Congress called the Renewed Hope Act. I'll tell you all about it. But y'all, I'm telling you, trafficking of kids is real. And it's in our backyard. And you got to be careful because it could be in your kids' video games for all you know. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show right here. This show goes all the way from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I mean, down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, and straight across the border to what we get to call, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio. By the way, we got a whole lot going on with our online viewers. And if you're not online viewing once in a while, you're missing out, because we put up more stuff there. You can see things. You can get an idea of what we're talking about with pictures that we show on the screen of the stories that we're covering. And yes, I would suggest that every once in a while, go check out our online. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Rumble. You can find us on X. You can find us on Facebook, and you can also, by the way, just go to our website, rightsidemedia.org. That's the company, rightsidemedia.org. So I'm in this section right now, heavy topic, but it's real, it's legit, it's a grown-up conversation, y'all. So the FBI has just opened up a huge amount of criminal investigations. One of the things that I'm loving right now is that the Trump administration is doing everything it can to try and figure out what happened to the 300,000 unaccompanied illegal immigrant kids who came across the border. 300,000. Story here on MSN. The Department of Homeland Security has now enlisted the FBI and other law enforcement agencies in recent weeks to conduct welfare checks on children and young people. So basically what they're doing is, if they've got an address of record, which they better, they're going and knocking on the door and saying, we'd like to see the child. We want to know they're okay. And then they're being given a list of questions to ask, because there are deep concerns that a lot of these kids were trafficked. But they're being given this questionnaire to go into, to make sure the kids are not in danger, to make sure that there is good work, to see that they go to school, to find out if there's anything about parents or who they're currently living with. Because I think what we're going to find is a whole lot of these kids disappeared into the ether. And the Biden administration was like, what? I don't see anything. What's going on? It's kids. This is one of those things that I believe that future generations of Americans are going to be held, are going to be looking back on us, and we're going to be held accountable. And we've got to do more, because 300,000 kids, 300,000, y'all, the Biden administration lost track of. They did no welfare checks. I've already seen, as I resourced the show today, any number of liberal media outlets saying this business of DHS in, getting the FBI and other law enforcement agencies to help them with the welfare checks on these 300,000 kids was a waste of time. It was not necessary. And I'm thinking, you know why? You don't want them to find out what they're going to find out. That's what's happening. The liberal media is so reeling from all the things that we're finding out about what happened during the last 4 years that the last thing they need is for another report to come out that says, oh, by the way, we can't find half of those kids. They're not where you said they were. FBI also, by the way, just ran a sex abuse offenders crackdown nationwide. 205 alleged child sex abuse offenders were basically swept up in a nationwide identification, track, and arrest sting. Child sex predators across the country in coordination with all 55 of our FBI field offices. So like 11 arrested in Cleveland alone. This kind of crackdown, more of it, please. More of it. But Tim Tebow has started something. Tim Tebow is a guy with an incredible platform. Of course, he's, Heisman Trophy winner, national champion, played professional football, and he's got a gravitas and a presence when he does something that carries weight. And he's using that for what I would call the good of the kingdom, if you know what I mean. Tim Tebow just did a podcast with Sean Ryan. Sean Ryan has one of the largest podcasts in the world. He's right up there with Joe Rogan. But Tim Tebow, basically, I got a story here from ChristianPost.com, and this came out a few months ago. But Tim Tebow outlined a new program with lawmakers at the U.S. Capitol called the Renewed Hope Act. And the Renewed Hope Act was designed to give U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Department of Homeland Security more resources to hire and train personnel to deal with child sex trafficking, exploitation of victims, helping to identify predators. And so he's got a mission in life right now. And he talked about that on Sean Ryan. And let me say something. A minute ago, I talked about that group that calls itself 764. There's a level of depravity that perhaps we as normal citizens don't think about, but it is out there. And the level of depravity, when you talk about child sex predators and child sex traffickers, please understand, these are not accidental perpetrators. There is a level of depravity involved here that goes way beyond anybody ever accidentally stumbling into something and they just need to get themselves out of it. No, these are people who plot. These are people who have a sociopathic mindset. They don't mind hurting other people. And then they take the most innocent and tender ages in our society, kids who can't even tie their own shoes yet, and they treat them with a level of disdain as if they are mere chattel. Tim Tebow talked about, in the Sean Ryan podcast, he read out some of the things that they say to each other in their predator chat rooms. He talked about one who said he has a daughter he'd like to share with others. He talked about one who said his favorite preference was children who are age 5 to 9. He talked about another one who said he had 20 terabytes of baby rape videos he was willing to sell. And then he talked about one who was interviewed and what he said about why he chooses certain kids on the playground. Here's I'm going to let you go ahead and play it. Go ahead and pull that audio clip up, and it's going to be video too. Those who are watching online, you'll be able to see a piece of this, 45 seconds, full credit to the Sean Ryan Show, interviewing Tim Tebow. Go ahead.
I hate to even say it. One of the top psychologists that he shared with us is one offender went to a playground and he watched all of the boys and girls. He picked a certain one. After he gets caught talking to him, he said, "Why did you pick that one? What's the reason why you did it? Is it height? Is it weight? Is it size? Is it color? Is it background?" "Well, no. He said, "No, I waited and I watched and I tried to find the happiest kid so that I could steal her soul."
Who does that? What's out there? It's out there. It's out there. The question is, what are we going to do about it? And I'm telling you right now, the liberal left, there's a couple of things here. I do not believe that everybody who has what I would call a left-leaning ideology or worldview is a child sex predator. I do not. So I'm not trying to say that those of you who are my listeners who are of the Democrat persuasion or tend to lean left or even center left, I get it. You can have liberal policies on politics and not be a child sex predator. I get it. What irritates the crap out of me right now, though, is that the left as a whole is not doing enough to fight the issue. They're not. Even when I find stories like this, off the Daily Fetched. Daily Fetched, 2 left-wing non-governmental organizations which are tied to George Soros are doing everything they can to thwart President Trump's new anti-child trafficking reforms. And you think, why? Here's the 2 groups. I'll name them by name. National Center for Youth Law, another one called Democracy Forward. They both gotten their money from George Soros's Open Society Foundation. They filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration trying to block his attempts to reform the unaccompanied alien child program. So this unaccompanied alien child program is what resettles migrant children as long as they can say they've got an adult sponsor when they arrive at the border. It's an absolute farce. Let me ask you this. Would you take your kid to the mall and drop them off and then be okay if somebody came along and said, "Hey kid, where do you need to go?" "I don't know, but I've got to see somebody. And they said, here's an adult. They want you. Okay, I'll go with them. Would you feel like the mall cops did a good job for your kid? If somebody said at your child's school that an adult showed up and took your child home and you said, who was it? I don't know. They said they would be responsible. Would you think that's okay? That's exactly what the program has been doing under the Biden administration for 300,000 children. A whistleblower at the Department of Health and Human Services named Tara Lee Rodas described the UAC program as nothing but a white glove delivery service, where migrant children moved from federal custody to adult sponsors, many of whom were not even relatives or parents. Here's her quote. She said, "We have delivered these unaccompanied children to criminals, traffickers, and members of transnational criminal organizations who are using that UAC program as a white glove delivery service of children." And the Soros-backed NGOs have now filed a class action lawsuit to stop Health and Human Services from just merely trying to verify the legal status of the children and trying to determine where they are and trying to add additional layers of protection. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. I don't get it one bit. I think it makes vigilantism look like a really good thing, to be honest with you. I do. I think it looks like something the society better get a grip on real quick, because I really do believe that while this has probably been going on since man left the garden, I also think that it has become far more prolific because there has been a lowering of the barriers. There's been a watering down of the morals. There has been a reducing of the inhibitions. And there has certainly been an increase in the ability for these people to reach our kids because of just the way our society is structured in the 21st century. And it is incumbent upon us as people who believe otherwise to fix it and to fight it and to deal with it. And if we see something, to say something. And then, oh, by the way, check and make sure who your kids are chatting with through their video games. Make sure you know what's on their smartphones. Make sure you know who their friends are on Facebook. Don't assume for a second that your innocent child will remain innocent if someone like a 764 person wants to get into their face. I'm just telling you, am I being serious? Well, I've worked with abused kids, so yes, by God, I am. I'm done. Whew. Lord God, I didn't know it was going to go down that road quite as steeply as it did. But y'all, I'm just telling you, it's real, and we need to fight it. Let's take a break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, saying it like it is. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. What bump was that? That one had a little Charlie Daniels feel to it.
That was a bit twangy.
Got
Yeah.
a little fiddle in it. If you want to play in Texas, you got to have a fiddle in the band.
Always.
I've heard that. Real quick, I'll go to the phones. But first of all, let me tell you the grades are in. John from Huntsville says, JP gets an A+ for his fantastic performance, and make sure you keep that fast bump track going in the current lineup. It's definitely the best, which means today's co-winners are obviously Nicole Wilson and Phil Williams with an A+. Congratulations to Phil. Keep preaching the truth because the world needs a lot more of it. Thank you, John. Appreciate you, as always. I got a bunch of texts on that last section that I feel like I ought to grab a couple of them. Crystal from Moulton. There's a special place and where for people who hurt children. Yes, I agree. Shag Nasty is saying that basically, why should we complain when we voted for Trump? Okay, got you. I was about to think you were on our side here a second. Yeah, never mind, Shag. I'm keeping your name in place. JT Lacey Springs says 300,000 missing. That's most of a Huntsville or a Birmingham disappearing. You're right, it is. And it's gross to think of it. Adam from Athens says, as a father of 2 young girls, I would gladly ask for God's forgiveness if anyone ever touched my kids. Yep. And then DJ from Huntsville says, demonic inspiration. Sean Ryan had author Lee Strobel on his podcast where they were talking about the occult and demonic influences on the natural world today. Happy Taco Tuesday, he says. There's a whole lot more text, one of which Kevin from Huntsville says, evil does walk among us. Yes, it does. That's why you have to be keenly aware, keep your head on a swivel, your powder dry, and if you see something, say something. That's just got to be a rule. Let me go to the phones because he's there. Jeff Rowe from Indiana. Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm running through Nashville. I see tall buildings, and that's about it.
Well, at least you're there. I think yesterday we talked to you. You were just getting to the state line, weren't you?
Oh, yeah. It was late night last night. Yeah, it was more fun than I should have been allowed to have.
What's the latest these drives have ever gotten you home? Because I know you do this route like almost every day. So what's the latest you've ever like been held up and then didn't get home till when?
Oh, I've been 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes if it gets that bad. It just according on how long I got to wait on something. So it's you never know.
But you leave out at what time every morning?
Usually leave out around 6 a.m. Central.
Whew, Lord, brother. Well, at least you got us to keep you company a long part of the way.
Oh yeah, lots of radio programs on in Alabama. I know more about Alabama than I do Indiana.
Well, what do you think about all the stuff we talked about today? Because we covered the gamut.
Well, the open borders was no accident.
Oh no,
they did it on purpose.
Yeah.
Just like, and I'm wondering, Biden didn't know what planet he was on, and Mayorkas was basically in charge of all this stuff. I want to know, you can't lose 300,000 children and not, know what's going on or not be taking some money. Everything surrounds around the Benjamins.
Yeah.
It's all about the money.
Yeah.
So these NGOs and everything, they know what they was doing. Certain ones I guess are legit and everything, but certain ones are probably in it with their hands out and probably not too good of people. So, I think these children, should be able to come back and sue the administration and sue these NGOs, come out of existence if they, show that they was basically trafficking these kids here, there, and yonder. And I think a lot of people need to go to prison over this because it's not accidental to lose that many children.
No, it's not, and it's it at the very least would be gross negligence, recklessness. But I agree with you. I think there's a huge degree of intentionality in it. I think that there's an absolute indifference to the well-being of people, and they couch the whole open borders thing as we care for people. Bull crap. If you cared for people, you wouldn't let it happen like it did. No way. No way.
I mean, we've got to put some laws in place that they can't just do this again and then have some teeth to back it up. I know what they did was basically illegal to do to start with, but no one held them to account.
Yeah, that goes back to that monologue I had at the beginning of the show, that Democrats need someone to give them an adult conversation. They need to stop pretending, stop obfuscating, stop basically lying, and start recognizing that if you wanted to say you're open borders, then just be open borders, but don't pretend. I mean, it's gross.
Well, there needs to be some actual punishment for what
Yes.
people have done.
Yes, there is.
I mean, back in the, nowadays everything is just, the prison system is just too easy on everybody. I think, used to be, it was hard labor. If you did something back in the 20s and 30s and everything, you may go to prison for 20, 30 years at hard labor, breaking rocks every day. I think we need to bring some of that kind of stuff back. There's too much. People need to be afraid to go to prison, but apparently they're not afraid anymore because they either don't get put in prison or it's like Club Med or something if they do go.
Well, I'm for it. But listen, brother, we're up against it, and you be safe on the road. We will talk to you again tomorrow, all right?
Have a good one, Phil.
Have a good